y'all remember what happened in LA a couple of months ago? Well, the military and the National Guard going in to subdue a couple of block radius worth of protests of ICE doing an invasion in LA. Well, I got to talk about something that is a little troubling. We just had a report come out from the New Republic, and it is troubling to say the least. Trump's domestic use of the military set to get worse, leaked memo shows. A Department of Homeland Security memo obtained by TNR signals top-level discussions about potential escalation of the Pentagon's domestic anti-immigration role and lays out a few details. President Donald Trump has already enmeshed the U.S. military in domestic law enforcement operations involving immigration. To an unprecedented degree, he has authorized a major military buildup at the border. He has maximized the use of military planes for deportations, spending billions of dollars that could provide us with health care, could shore up the safety net, the social safety net. No. We're going to spend this money on policing American citizens and deporting brown people. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent yet again. Let's see here. He has maximized the use of military planes for deportation, complete with the White House pumping out imagery of immigrants getting frog marched into souped up military aircraft. By the way, each one of those flights cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. He sent the National Guard to Los Angeles amid large-scale protests there. It wasn't that large-scale. There was quite a few people protesting, but it was a very small area in L.A. You travel all around. L.A. is a sprawl. People live miles and miles away from each other. LA is very large in area. So it was a very small area around a federal building where ICE was grabbing people off the street and taking them there. Anyway, and then he sent in the Marines, which, great, man. We're literally using U.S. military to police American citizens. And they were actually doing arrests, so that's fantastic. But an internal memo circulated inside the Department of Homeland Security suggests that Trump used the military for domestic law enforcement on immigration could soon get worse. The memo obtained by the New Republic provides a glimpse into the thinking of top officials as they seek to involve the Defense Department more deeply into these domestic operations. It has unnerved experts who believe it portends a frightening escalation. Memo lays out the need to persuade top Pentagon officials to get much more serious about using the military to combat illegal immigration, and not just at the border. He suggests that DHS is anticipating many more uses of the military in urban centers, noting that LA-style operations may be needed, quote, for years to come. And it likens the threat posed by transnational gangs and cartels to having Al-Qaeda or ISIS cells and fighters operating freely inside America, hinting at a ramped-up militarized posture inside the interior. What that's saying is that they are going to be saying that MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, they are running rampant in any street that we want to say that they're running rampant on, and we're going to use that as an excuse to send in the military to de-escalate. That's going to be their excuse du jour, is that we are fighting some kind of terrorist cells in the country, and they're all, brown people, and we need to send in the military to lock it down. The memo is alarming because it speaks to the intent to use the military within the United States at a level not seen since Japanese internment. Carrie Lee, senior fellow of the German Marshall Fund, told me, the military is the most powerful coercive tool in our country. We don't want the military doing law enforcement. They are not equipped to do that. That's why we have cops. That's why we have the FBI. We do not use a group that is trained to fight on foreign soil to police citizens in our country, posse comitatus, completely unconstitutional, completely. The memo was authored by Philip Hegseth. By the way, that name sounds familiar. It's because it's Pete's younger brother, who happens to be on Defense Secretary's, it says it's a senior advisor to Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. So Pete Hegseth, who is the drunken Department of Defense head, his brother, because it's all about fucking nepotism, right? He's working with Kristi Noem as a senior advisor and the Department of Homeland Security liaison officer to the Defense Department. So he is a liaison between the two of them. As such, it also sheds light on Hegseth's younger's role, which has been the subject of media speculation, labeling him an obscure but influential figure in his brother's MAGA orbit. The memo outlines the itinerary for July 21st meeting between senior DHS and Pentagon officials with the goal of better coordinating the agency's activities in defense of the homeland. God, man, that sounds so fucking, I was going to say Orwellian, but honestly, it sounds so very German Prussian. Show me your papers. It details goals that Philip Hegseth hopes to accomplish in the meeting and outlines points he wants DHS officials to impress on Pentagon attendees. Participants listed compromise the very top levels of both agencies, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and several of his top advisors, Joint Chief Chairman Dan Kane and Northcom Commander Gregory Gillow. Staff includes Pete Hegseth and Acting ICE Commissioner Todd Lyons. That dude, he's a piece of work. Due to the sensitive nature of the meeting, minimal written policy or background information can be provided in the briefing memo. Yeah, because after that Signalgate thing, Pete Hegseth is we're not writing down anything anymore, goddammit. We're just going to talk in private back rooms, and that's it. And, no phone calls, no nothing. It's going to be all in-person meetings, and there's nothing going to be written on any paper either. I don't want this coming back to bite me in the ass. Well, it got leaked, dog. I'm sorry. The secret's out. So now you want to invade every blue state in the union, every major city. You're going to want to send the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the military to make sure that MS-13 isn't running rampant, on Lexington Avenue. Is that what you're doing? Lee of the Marshall Fund told me this suggests, quote, they understand the actions that they're taking and are skirting the line. The primary goal of the meeting, the memo says, is to foster, quote, new ideas for how the two departments can better plan for national security and illegal immigration. Then adds this: the U.S. military leadership, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Northcom need to feel for the first time the urgency of Homeland Defense mission. They need to understand the threat. What's at stake? What is at stake, Pete? What is at stake? I mean, how do we know that this is not going to be employed around October 2026 when the elections are coming up? And now we're going to need to have military, making sure that voting is going according to plan. How do we know that they're not going to, take hold of those voting machines? Remember back in 2020 when Donald Trump was talking about we need to start policing the voting machines? Well, now he is setting himself to be able to do that and using the military and military boots on American soil to make sure that the outcome comes out the way he wants. Experts I spoke with were surprised at how bluntly that suggests DHS pressure on the Defense Department to get the military much more involved in immigration enforcement, potential tension between top officials at both agencies over the imperative, and possible resistance to it by Pentagon officials. The memo says aligning both agencies this way is a priority to POTUS. So it's got nothing to do with criminality. It's got nothing to do with illegal immigration. It's just it's a priority of the president. Let's get it done. Let's see. It's disturbing to see the DHS officials pressuring the U.S. military to turn its focus inward even further. Joseph Nunn, counsel for the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center, told me, Nunn says this suggests military involvement in domestic civilian law enforcement is about to get more common. The memo articulates the need for just that. It says that the DHS hopes to secure a verbal agreement to find places where the Department of Defense can detail personnel within ICE and Customs and Border Protection and vice versa to increase information sharing and specifically support nationwide operational planning capabilities. Let me see here. What we got here? The upshot seems to be that the DHS is urging top Pentagon officials to prioritize using the military against illegal immigration to a substantially greater and unprecedented degree. That discussions are underway to accomplish that with the Secretary's Hegseth's blessing. Now, real quick, I wanted to mention that earlier this year, Donald Trump dismantled the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, which has got a lot to do with electronic voting. And he's already come out with, different ideas about how to, make sure that people have, everybody's got to bring ID and proof of citizenship. Do you even have proof of citizenship? I got my driver's license. I can, that's got my address, of my apartment in New York City on it. But do I have proof of citizenship? So he has gotten rid of the agency that protects against any kind of cyber threat to our election. So let's just postulate here for a second. During the 2016 election, Russia was doing a little fuckery, putting out some bad information about Hillary Clinton. And it caused up enough of a stir for her to lose by a very small margin. Now, of course, recently they've come out and are angry at Obama, saying that it wasn't just Russia wasn't just fucking with the Democrats, they were also fucking with the Republicans too. It doesn't really seem to matter because Donald Trump ended up winning anyway. But that agency, the cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies, that is like the watchdog for our electronic voting and anybody who is a foreign agent who is trying to influence the election. Now, if Trump gets rid of that, he can easily say that, hey, somebody such and such from, who knows, Hungary, Brazil, China, they were doing some fuckery in Alabama, and now we can't believe the numbers. Even though Alabama notoriously votes for, well, let's just say it's a swing state like Pennsylvania. China was doing something in Pennsylvania, and now we can't trust the numbers. Donald Trump is desperate to not trust the numbers because he's afraid he's going to lose. So what better way to throw a monkey in the wrench than by not only getting rid of the watchdog, but then going out there and saying, hey, somebody was doing some fuckery. Now I need to employ Pete Hegseth and DHS to take command of all of the, the voting machines, and then we'll do our own personal recount. How do you know that that's not going to happen? Anyway, let's go back to this article real quick. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see here. It sounds like DHS Secretary Hegseth is trying to compel the military to agree to operate much more directly with the U.S. territory. Corey Shiitake, or I can't pronounce, Director of Foreign and Defense Policy Studies at the American Enterprise Institute told me, asked for the clarification of the memo's intentions. DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin declined to comment. The New Republic retained it on the condition that we refrain from posting the original document, so we posted much of the text of it here. We omitted some logistical and biographical details. Then there's the mention of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The memo details talking points for DHS officials to use to persuade these Pentagon officials to get more involved in domestic enforcement. It references attacks on the DHS officers and Central and South American cartels and gangs. So they're going to be using these things as an excuse. You know, the cartels that are bringing in all of the fentanyl, yada, yada, yada. Now they are on American soil, and we need to send in the military to knock them down because they're already here. They're right next door to you. They moved into the house next door. They're right down the street at the end of the cul-de-sac, man. We got to get the military in there to take them out. That puts this threat on the same plane as having Al-Qaeda or ISIS cells and fighters operating freely inside of America. Honey, the only terrorist cells that we seem to have here in America are white nationalist terrorist cells. There's no getting around it. The majority of domestic terrorism in this country, 90% of it, is white nationalists. That's just the way it is, hon. There ain't no getting around it. Yeah, I know, my numbers, you know, you've got your numbers, I got not my numbers. My numbers say that it's all, you know, Muslim, terrorist, and MS-13. Sure, man, go on with your bad self. Expert I spoke with saw this line as particularly worrisome. The conflation of low-level threat like transnational criminal organizations, conflating that with Al-Qaeda, which is actually attempting to topple the United States government. Well, they're way over there. They're not really here, but okay, sure. It's a clear attempt to use excessive force for a purpose normally handled by civil authorities, cops, FBI, that kind of thing. An associate professor at the U.S. Naval War College told me, Lindsay Cohen. The memo also discusses recent military operations in LA as follows. It hasn't been perfect and we're still working through the best practices together, but I think it's a good indicator of the type of operations and resistance we're going to be working through for years to come. By the way, they're still there. There's still some military, there's still some National Guard. They've been kind of pulling them out slowly because ain't no protest going on there anymore. And there's nothing going on but the rent. So they have been slowly pulling them out, but they're still there. And they, I believe, and what this memo is saying, is they intend on amping this up for all major cities. And generally speaking, most cities are Democratic because they have lots of people, and lots of people living together are generally more Democratic. They're more blue than the smaller, more rural areas that tend to be red. So they're not going to be invading Omaha. They're going to be invading Chicago. They're going to be invading San Francisco. They're going to be invading New York City. You know, the major cities, the major blue strongholds. Quote, that's alarming because it's putting responses to constitutionally protected protests in the same basket as counterterrorism and transnational criminal organizations. I mean, just listen to the way that sounds. You know, your political protest is now going to be on the same level as terrorism. I mean, that's what they're calling you. We do have legal ways for the military to support civilian law enforcement, but it's always supposed to be the last resort. This memo is talking about turning internal homeland security into a regular Defense Department activity, which it is not. This is not normal. No, it's not. The larger context here is that the administration has taken extraordinary license in its invention of pretext for draconian domestic operations. The administration has insisted that we are under foreign invasion by all 380 Tren de Aragua, because that's what the count was. When all this started, they said that there was about 300 to 400 Tren de Aragua in the entire country, which is why we need to hire 10,000 more ICE agents, giving them $50,000 bonuses and, on top of all of the rest of it, plus $175 billion in extra funding for ICE. to get all 400 of the Tren de Aragua and, the handful of MS-13. When you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail, including your protest. Let's see. Invasion to invoke the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport hundreds of people with little to no due process. It's not little, it's just none. Government agencies have hyped supposed evidence of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's MS-13 size. I saw it on his hand. He had it tattooed right there, MS-13. It's like, Mr. President, that was Photoshop. No, it wasn't. I saw the picture. It was. Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear it. Well, we'll agree to disagree. I won't agree to that either. By the way, that guy got fired. Ties to justify illegal renditioning him to a Salvadorian prison. Yeah, man, he was fucking tortured. He was fucking tortured. As well as that gay makeup artist he's back in Venezuela now. They interviewed him and he says, yeah, man, I was raped. I was sexually assaulted while I was in that prison. And not just that, but he was beaten and tortured and then raped. Fantastic. Great stuff. But yeah, man, let's get rid of all brown people. They're all Tren de Aragua. They're all MS-13. Trump has a long history of lying about crime to justify immigration crackdowns. He invented numerous fake pretexts for sending troops into LA. The memo suggests further operations of the tactic. Quote, they see Los Angeles as a model to be replicated. So that was basically a testing ground. It was a proving ground. And we all saw the shit that was going on. You remember that scene at MacArthur Park where they had the military all jacked up, wearing bulletproof vests, armored vehicles, all of these guys on horseback. And the kids were out there in the park playing soccer. They had to run for their lives because the fucking military showed up there. Now that is going to be used as the model for future city invasions. Great stuff, guys. Great stuff. All this comes as ICE is about to receive well over $100 billion in new funds. 175. Well, ICE is getting that, and like another 75 is being put to use to build the facilities to house all the migrants that they illegally grab off the street with no due process. The memo raises questions about what that use of military personnel detailed within ICE and CBP will look like with all of that money. In a sense, the administration seems to be supercharging immigration invasion agitprop to manufacture a sense of national trauma. That's the whole thing that they just, it's like, we are being invaded. You remember in 2018, right before the election, it was, the caravan. The caravan was coming up from South America, coming through Mexico, and within 5 minutes of them crossing the border, they will be at your vacation home in Minnesota, and they will be kicking you out of your house in Nebraska. Caravan, caravan, caravan. As soon as the election was over with, nobody talked about the fucking caravan because it was bullshit. It was always bullshit. But they use it to scare their people. Well, now they're using it as an excuse to use military on American fucking citizens, man. What are we doing? Look, just read the rest of the damn article. It's all very troubling. If you are a military, if you're military personnel and you are about to be asked to go to a blue city or any city to police American citizens, honestly, you should quit. I know it's easy, easier said than done. Who am I to tell you to quit your job? But hun, if they are asking you to police American citizens, this whole I'm just following orders thing, it did not work at Nuremberg, y'all. You are going to be policing, physically assaulting, arresting American citizens? Are you okay with that? Honestly, if you are okay with that, you really shouldn't be in the military. But if you're not okay with it, you should resign. They're forcing you to use military training and military tactics on American citizens. This is the part where you need to go, I'm a conscientious objector. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be policing American citizens. These are my fellow Americans. I'm here to defend them from foreign danger. I'm not here to domestically police them. Anyway, this is all very, very troubling. And, my speculation about whether or not they're going to be doing this around election time, I mean, only time will tell. But when you start to see the head of the military, Pete Hegseth, liaise with his baby bro, with the Department of Homeland Security, and talking about invading a lot of cities using LA as the model, that portends very poorly. And if by chance Donald Trump feels like he's not going to win the 2026 midterms, do you really think that he wouldn't do it? Do you really put it past Donald Trump that he would not employ the military to take control of the voting machines to make sure, we got to find out what the hell is going on. There's no way I could lose. If I lose, they cheated. I need the military in there. Anyway, it's all troubling, folks. It's all very troubling. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe. Keep rocking.